Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. We look back on a relatively quiet week in the world of motorsport, but as always, there's still plenty to talk about, including MotoGP topping the bill with the Austrian Grand Prix. The BTCC literally takes off over the Knockhill curbs. I've done that myself. And there's yet another new winner at the NASCAR playoffs as they loom even closer. First in the news, well, I'm going to start off with the news because you were racing around Thruxton in a Formula E car, not the type of circuit you'd expect to see a Formula E car.
Quite racing, but yes, I've been doing Formula E after having doing my Super Formula car. I've been down in
Easy for you to say.
Out in the Midlands, out in what track was that? Driving the Super Formula car.
Abu Dhabi, Yas Marina.
Abu Dhabi, yeah, Yas Marina. So after doing a few laps in the Yas Marina in a Super Formula car, I've now been out in the Formula E's two-car passenger ride car.
Envision Racing.
It's the only one in the world, I'm told.
What was it like?
Electric cars elsewhere. It's very much a hybrid car. It had huge sort of tyres on it that I don't know where they even got them from. It didn't have the regular skinny little Formula E tyre. It had proper race tyres, and it's a big long wheelbase. Beautiful looking car that looked quite good, especially the Envision colours. So I had to stop taking passengers in my BMW for a half-hour break so I could jump in and do a few laps in their Formula E two-seater demonstration car. And unfortunately, it had the first gen power plant. It wasn't really sorted. It was sorted for going around a type circuit, Formula E circuit. So it's not been fully sorted as a race car yet. It was just a lovely experience. It's always lovely to get a single seater. Have your little head
not technically a single seater.
No,
you had someone behind you. And just to clarify, you called it a hybrid, but you called it a hybrid because it's a bit of a mismatch of a.
Yes. Yeah, that's confusing, isn't it? Yeah, you see, you can get words that mean different things that mean the same thing, isn't it? It was. What's the word then for a one-off?
Bespoke.
Hybrid, a bespoke, a sort of a bits and pieces. But
okay, well, good. Well, that's going to be interesting. We got loads of exciting stuff coming up, but it's just getting it out there to you guys, which we will plan on doing at the earliest possible opportunity. I read something quite interesting in terms of Formula One. Who do you think has done the most races for McLaren?
You've been talking to Crofty again, haven't you? You've been talking to Crofty.
Well, it is a bit of a stat, but I'll tell you, in Qatar, Lando Norris will become, assuming he races every race between now and Qatar, Lando Norris feels like he's been around for 5 minutes, will become the McLaren driver with the most Grand Prix in history. That's just phenomenal.
Trouble is, this is why in the middle of races, Grand Prix, when Crofty comes up with something like this, it stops me listening to what's going on in the race. I sort of lose concentration in the race because then I start, well, Crofty, you sure? What? Lando Norris? And then you see what I mean about throwing stats at you and makes you want to challenge that. And, well, what about Alonso and Button then? Have you got the list there? Whose record does he break?
But see, 1 minute you don't want stats, and the next minute you want the whole list.
I don't want them in the middle of a race because it takes my brain, and my tiny brain doesn't want to work on too many things. Have you got the actual list, or is that just a headline you're going to throw at us with no backup?
Just going to share the headline.
Oh, God. See, now, when we finish this, now I'm going to have to go look and find out that. More interesting.
What have you got? What have you
just
got?
Come up. They're still talking about these new rules, aren't they? It's just a story in motorsport I've just seen this morning, where this, I can never pronounce his name, Nicholas Tombias, who's the sort of single-seater king of FIA. It says the FIA is still working on new F1 rules. This is for racing, testing in about 6 months' time, isn't it? To prevent unnatural things on track in 2026. That was his quote, unnatural, to work in progress. They want to present unnatural things. We absolutely don't want drivers to lift off on the straights. We better change the bloody regulations then, you idiots. It's all about, because, this half electric, half...
They don't care. They don't care. They just want to get the revenue and the tickets and the parties and stuff. So David Coulthard holds the record for the most Grand Prix starts for a McLaren driver with 150. Lando second with 142.
David Coulthard.
I know. I would never have got that. I wouldn't even got that in a multiple choice.
No.
And then Jensen was third with 136. So Lando's already ahead of him. I would have guessed Jensen. Yeah, would have probably guessed Jensen first, actually. What about Raikkonen? How many did he do?
A good statistic.
Not Raikkonen, Hakkinen.
I don't know how you work this statistic out. If you did it, no, you can't do it out. Percentage of Grand Prix in a year. Because obviously when Bruce McLaren and Denny Holman, Emerson Fittipaldi were racing McLaren, they only had about 12 Grand Prix a year. So you do, 4 seasons, but you still only do, a limited number of races. So,
Yeah.
but as a percentage of the races held, no, forget that one. Right.
No, I'm with you, because when people say he's the most capped England fullback or
I
whatever
know.
in different sports, they do so many more
Yeah. Yeah.
internationals than they used
Yeah.
to. But if you look at that, Coulthard probably still has the longest longevity. So he did 8 years with McLaren,
Yeah.
and I think, just looking very quickly, Mika Hakkinen was probably the second in terms of longevity of years.
Yeah. Yeah. Seasons. That'd be a better way of doing it. How many seasons
Mm.
have they stayed in a team for?
Anyway,
Anyway,
let's move on.
well,
Let's go to.
let's bounce on from. We just talked about Formula One. They don't care about the cars and the performance. It's all a show. There's now increasing criticism of the motorbike world. And it's something I've been noticing, Marquez, and the Superbike, Razgatlioglu. And it's getting a bit tedious in motorbike racing. And it was kicked off really by the former champion Casey Stoner down in Austria. And there's a new rule coming out. I'll mention that in a minute. But the whole thing that there's too many electronics in bikes. The bikes are now becoming, easier to ride to a certain limit, and so it closes up, but harder to overtake because you're all sort of stuck with the same thing. And they're sort of saying, that they haven't taken the lesson from Formula One, and a little bit like in Formula One now, we now understand that they don't give a toss about us real enthusiasts that have supported motor racing and Grand Prix racing for, well, in my case, 50 years. They just want the party and the crowds, and they just want the razzmatazz. And whether the racing's entertaining is almost irrelevant, as long as we've got 50%, battery power and we're road relevant and all this stuff. And bike racing, they're pointing at, is getting the same problems. It's getting more and more tech. They're allowing more and more electronics. And unfortunately, the manufacturer, Honda and Ducati, want this power to change the electronics to find little clever whiz-kid ways of winning races. So that is always the problem, that the teams and the aerodynamicists in Formula One, they want to have all these new advancements, but are we sure that the spectators that really love the sport do? Because they've just come out now this week, which has come up. They probably already knew about it for months, but it's been in the pipeline, about this anti-high side device. So obviously they're saying one of the most dangerous crashes on a motorbike is when they get high-sided, when the back goes sideways, then it digs in and flips the riders, sometimes 20 feet up in the air, and they come down in horrendous crashes. So they're trying to bring it as a safety thing. But of course, preventing a high side as a rider is one of the greatest skills you can have. The rider that can take the back end stepping out just that little bit more than the other guy will probably be faster.
Yeah.
So now they're talking about device that, like Thruxton, the British Superbikes. I'm going to mention them later in the way I'm thinking, that are so entertaining around Thruxton. They're coming through Church Corner with the back hanging out, and they know if they twist the throttle a bit too much and that back hangs out more than, 10, 20 degrees, it's going to bite and flip them. So the skill to get closer as possible to that high side moment is the skill of the most talented riders.
Yeah.
It will now appear that as the back goes out, you can go full throttle, and this thing will just take away torque to stop the wheels spinning and just allow you to keep on going like you're a superstar rider.
Yeah, but so, Tiff, you know that when you drive a car with part traction control on, part off, you prefer all off anyway, because you don't want it to catch it, because if it catches it,
and I can play that way. Yeah, no, I don't
want
it.
Even if you're racing, if you're racing, you'd want it all off, surely.
Well, no, that's the trouble again in GT3 racing, which I don't like so much, because they've got ABS, they've got traction control, and the way they drive with no track limits and stuff in the DTM GT3s, they just barge inside each other because they know that traction control will save them, ABS brakes. So drivers don't lock up brakes or don't spin up wheels in GT3s. And the trouble is, the privateers that pay a lot of money, they want all those aids, whereas the racing drivers. So just back to the bikes, it'll stop them going too much sideways. Now, Casey Stowe's even pointing out that, because they've got these new regulations coming for 2027, where they're going to reduce the aero and get rid of those horrible whole shot ride height devices and get rid of a lot of the electronics. But they're also bringing in less power. So Casey said, well, that will mean the braking distance will be shorter because they'll be slower in a straight line, and that will take away braking distance, which, of course, all the Formula One stuff. The braking distance is so ridiculously short with the aero they've got on the cars and the size of the tyres. And so that all the time you're deleting the driver's skills. Marc Marquez and Pedro Costa, two of the most talented natural drivers in Grand Prix racing at the moment, both immediately said, well, no, we don't want that. You know, it takes away my advantage as a better rider. And, you know, when Jim Clark, we all mentioned my superhero, he would be 2 seconds lap quicker than a very, very good driver in the same car because he was just on the limit, right on the limit, which no other driver would get near. So that's a big throttle. And, of course, bike racers, they're not so easily led astray by liberty and razzmatazz and show, you know. So if you start turning away the real bike enthusiasts from the spectator areas, you'll have a very small amount of people watching. Because it's just taking what else makes. I mean, so in fact, Stone has said that Marc Marquez's dominance, part of it, obviously the most naturally talented rider on the grid, perhaps, but the fact that he learned his skills in pre-massive electronic days, so he knows what a bike should feel like. So he can release some of those electronics more than the others. People that grew up with electronics, you know, can't live without it. You know, on the high side, you know.
Of course, yeah. And
we talk about BSB. So BSB, so World Superbikes. I mean, it's just Razgatlioglu Bulaga. Because two riders have got to learn how to drive these electronically things, found the way to get the best out of them. And they just sit there, off they go. The other thing, if you put this this high side limiter in, all the riders are going to go into the corners quicker. So there'll be a lot more low sides, whatever they call it, with the front folding under, because they're all now encouraged by their safety. So they get to the apex, they'll just go full throttle on the twist grip and off you shoot. So so both at Moto GP, dominated by the Marquez brothers, and Superbikes, they're pretty dull races. I'm sorry, I know it's spectacular because we see the rider on the bike, but then the races are processional. Whereas the British Superbikes, they've got almost street bikes. They haven't got nearly as much electronics. They haven't got any traction control. And so the riders are really much more important to the result, you know, than the bike. Well, I know at tracks the Yamaha's the best bike and other tracks Ducati's the best. There are obviously horses for courses because of the natural bike. And the racing we have in British Superbikes is so spectacular. And yet the riders that leave us, Scott Redding, super champion, and go to World Superbikes, they can't get with the electronic aids quick enough. So your first year, whereas the other riders have learnt the electronic aids for 3 years, for 3 seasons, a naturally talented rider can't jump on a World Superbike and not look a bit of a mug, batting 10th or 15th, you know, because he hasn't got used to working with electronics. So I think it's a big problem for bikes. I know they're being bought by Liberty now. They're all going to go showbiz. They're all going to be film superstars. Also, this electronics cost money. You know, everyone's trying to cut budgets. You know, all the money they spend.
I think that's the big thing for me. It's not so much, because I think there's, you know, it's such a small margin. But I think that's the big thing for me. It's all about the technology, and then things go wrong, and every time they try and improve that. But then does it filter down like a Formula One car? Does it filter down to the road bikes? And is it something that they want to have in with it? I don't.
An anti-wheelie device, maybe let that, because obviously wheelies off the grid are a bit embarrassing. But
you say that, but surely that's down to driver skill. It's like
this
whole thing with how they drag race off, and it's all set down, and then it goes up, and if they forget to, if it doesn't go up, there's a problem going into turn one. Yeah. I would love to. I would love to take that off the start. So
that is that's 2027. A lot of people have said they should do it now. They should do it because you can change rules instantly on a safety reason. And I reckon arriving at the first corner, if it's really fast corners, because they have to brake to get rid of the stupid launch thing to lift the bike back up again. I didn't realise they're using it on scramble bikes. You know, they all sit in the gates going, meh, 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 meh. They've now pressed the forks down. So literally the forks are locked down so that bike doesn't come off out too much technical assistance. So again, in the Austrian round, the wonderful, wonderful looking Red Bull Ring, but awful, in my opinion, it's a rubbish racetrack because it's just a load of stupidly tight braking zones and not any really fast corners, apart from the 2 left-handers, which are quite good in the middle of the lap. But here we go. The sprint race was another Marquez 1-2, Mark versus Alex. Mark won the Grand Prix, was a surprise. Alex didn't come second because he had a long lap penalty. He was done in Czech, caused an accident in the Czech Grand Prix. So he had to take a long lap penalty, which I think is a really good form of penalties, to be honest, if you've done something bad. And he came back out in about 10th, and I think he only got up to when he only finished 10th, so Alex didn't have a very good run. And again, the same story. Marquez wins. Pecco Bagnaia's rubbish. Pecco Bagnaia's a terrible time. And this is becoming a big thing now between Ducati beginning to blame Pecco. They support a Pecco blaming Ducati. And he qualified third because I think he won the last 3 Grand Prix. So the Red Bull Ring is a Bagnaia track where Pecco's always been completely the king. And he did qualify on the front row, but his wheels spun up, so he's doing his whole shot. But for some reason, the clutch isn't set by the scientist or the engineer, because they all just dump the clutch, I'm pretty sure. I don't think there's much feel. It's just, rev, go. And if the computer gets it wrong with the electronic assistance, so he spun up the rear wheel, which almost put him flat on his back in front of a pack of 25 other bikes. It's a dangerous, flipping, stupid thing. And then by the second or third lap, his rear tyre ran out of all grip, and so he pitted and retired. Then in the Grand Prix itself, he started third again on the front row and just gradually dropped back to 8th place to finish. And then he blamed the Ducati, and he said every time he comes out of a corner, he hasn't got the same traction as others, and they all overtake him under acceleration. So he's blaming Ducati. Ducati is saying they're very, disappointed with Pecco, and it's all getting nasty there in the two sides of the factory Ducati garage. But to be fair, to say that it's all Marquez, he didn't have his own way, because the others are getting closer. Marco Bezzecchi was on pole for the Aprilia, so that was good news for them. But we have had Yamaha on pole with Quartararo, so often getting a pole doesn't mean you're going to have the race distance and true to form. Bezzecchi finished 4th in the sprint, and 3rd in the Grand Prix. It led a long way, but Marquez eventually had his way. Again, Pedro Costa, KTMs are looking better. Although he only qualified 7th, Pedro didn't crash, which must be a weekend without crash he's ever had before. He might have done it in practice, I don't know. But he had a 3rd and a 4th, podium in the sprint and 4th. And then another challenge right towards the end. Alex Marquez, his teammate, this young talented Fermin Aldeguer in the Gresini satellite Ducati. He was sixth in the sprint, but he came storming through at the end of the Grand Prix to finish 2nd. Taking Bezzecchi, and Gresini are famous for making their tyres last a bit longer. So they've got a tweak that makes the tyres last longer in the Grand Prix. So it was exciting, mainly because Aldeguer was catching up, and mainly because Bezzecchi was leading for a while on the Aprilia. But Marquez still won. I can't believe he hasn't won the championship by now. We keep on saying, Marc Marquez won the sprint. I don't know what I can't be bothered to see what the points are. There's still quite a lot of Grand Prix going. Just check out how
many. Every week is the same. Every week is
what we've got left.
Marc
1,
Marquez,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 9 weekends left. So that's 9 sprints, and that's 18 more races still to come in MotoGP. Right,
he's got the double 6, I think, hasn't he, or something? I don't know. I read that somewhere.
Moto2, the championship leader, Manuel Gonzalez, had an engine failure, which is very rare in Moto2, the Triumph engines. There always sounds a brilliant pack of them. So the Brazilian, who's much fancied, Diego Moreira, had another win, and he's moved up now to 3rd in the championship, because Gonzalez, they're all closing up at the top. Well, the 2nd place in the championship, Aaron Canet, he only finished 10th, but he's still 2nd in the championship. And a little bit of sort of bad news in a way for Jake Dixon, who had another completely miserable weekend off the pate in his team VDS, the Belgian team, which is a lead team in GP2, but hasn't worked out for Jake. He's down to 5th in the championship. And also this week, the team announced they'd signed Aaron Canet, who's 2nd at the moment to the championship, to be full-time in GP2 for their team. But it doesn't say they've dropped Jake yet. But the story is Jake's looking at World Superbikes for next year. So it looks like we may have no one in Moto2 next year. Meaning we'd only have, at the moment, we had 3, not 3 British riders in Moto3. We had a new debutant who's been leading young kid on the British scene. He's an Irish boy, Casey O'Gorman, and very excited to be having his first Grand Prix. He's just come from 3 second places in the FIM Junior World Championship, so there's a little talent coming up. So Irish boy Casey O'Gorman, he qualified 20th, finished 18th. Scott Ogden had another weekend to forget, qualified 13th, finished 15th, and Eddie O'Shea who isn't Irish, but he's British, Eddie O'Shea. He qualified 23rd and finished 21st. So maybe someone, I don't know, Casey O'Gorman would only be doing GP3 at the most, Moto3 at the most, and I can't see Scott Redding going up. So we might have even less British contingency in MotoGP, which is a bit of a shame.
Good. Can we move on from motorbikes? That's a lot of motorbikes. I think it's too
Well,
motorbike heavy. I think
well,
I think I know you love it, but I don't know.
just for
Let us know
change,
below.
just for change, just for, yes, let
Yeah.
us know behind. Yeah, bikers, please tell us if you like, and tell us to comment. Bikers, I shall tweet like mad to get bikers to listen, to comment. I might be talking rubbish about whole shot devices. We need to know from bike fans.
Right.
And
Remember
so
last week? Remember last week we were talking about a certain driver that might not be fit and well to get to Knockhill, BTCC.
yes,
Wasn't it Jake Hill?
and he just won 2 races.
Yeah, you did rather well, didn't he?
Oh, what was the name of the team that had the fire? They borrowed 2 old Seat
I
Leons and were up
know they
there.
did so
Fantastic
well.
story.
Absolutely
I've forgotten the
brilliant.
name of the team, but
Max Power Racing, I think.
yeah, that was
We should know,
fantastic
but
news.
absolutely
We got
brilliant.
up there.
And
They started and
that's
finished.
nice. I like that. There's so much rivalry in racing, especially when the visor goes down. But off the track, everybody's so helpful and yeah, and it just goes to show that the community there is no different to any of the grassroots
Yeah.
racing.
But it was a wonder. I'm Knockhill in the sunshine. The commentators, they kept on saying, unusually, and look, and you can see the river, the Firth of the Forth, or whatever it is. It was magnificent. And the crowd was apt. I don't know how many they could get into Knockhill, but there wasn't a spare blade of glass, blade of glass, blade of grass by the looks. The cars were banked up. There was nowhere left to put. It was absolutely rammed. And the touring car boys, they're always spectacular around there. Again, another track I don't particularly like because it's all bouncing over curbs and it's a bit of a bull ring.
It's fun, but not for touring cars.
No, so but it also it's a rear wheel drive track, so that helped Jake Hill on his comeback from his illness to his ear, whatever problem he had. And in fact, they were top 3 in qualifying. Charles Rainford on pole, his first ever pole. I think he was a Porsche Super Cup champion, but anyway, his first ever pole.
It's got a good corner name. I remember. Sorry, Tiff. You carry on. I was just. It's got a good Duffer's Dip.
Duffer's Dip.
Right hand and left hand down the hill. Yeah.
Down the hill. Great stuff. Darrell, in fact, Jake Hill was only 3rd, so it was a BMW dominated top 3, helping the rear wheel drive. With Tom Ingram lurking there in 4th, best of the rest, and Ash Sutton struggling to get his Ford Focus to handle well. And of course, it's a big. The names like Jake and Tom and Ash had less power laps for qualifying. So maybe the fact Jake Hill's out qualified by his 2 teammates might have been helped by the fact they got more boost laps. So they're coming out that big hill out the hairpin to start the lap. An extra bit of boost makes a big difference. But the rookie teammates fell apart, as we said, and Jake came through, won the first race. He got 5th. He had to switch the harder tyre. But this time, unlike Croft, it wasn't soft to hard. It was soft to medium. I think that was right at Croft. It might be medium to hard. Anyway, they didn't run the hardest tyre. So Jake, when he had to switch the harder tyre, the medium, still managed to finish 5th. So he had 2 wins and a 5th, looking very confident out front while his teammates fell apart and dropped back. His rookies didn't have such a good time. Tom Ingram had a usual thinking man's weekend where he just follows people. In the sprint race at the end, or the reverse one, he was sort of just pushing Sutton by a millimetre, but never actually hitting him. It was just so close. So he started the first race on the mediums to get rid of those tyres and finished 3rd. Then he won race 2 on the softer tyres. He was 4th in the reverse grid race, unable to get by Sutton at all. And Sutton had 7th in the first race, then a second. There was a bit of I don't know about this because I've searched it this morning. Because on television, in both the second race and the third race, Dan Camish, running 2nd, slowed to let Ash Sutton, his teammate, overtake coming out to the finish line to give Sutton 2nd place. But in one of the result sheets for the final reverse grid race that was won by Hill, of course, Hill, miles away, disappeared. But he got him down as 3rd place. So whether Dan didn't start before the finish line and he got slightly overtaken, I don't know. So I don't know Ash Sutton had 2 second places or a 2nd and a 3rd.
Yeah, what was it like in your day racing manual, being that close to someone's bumper because everybody, even the top drivers, will miss a gear wanting a blue moon. But then if they do, that's it. You're
Well, you'll hit them, yeah.
yeah.
Miss again.
It's like they're
I had,
braking.
that was one of the most annoying ones I ever had. It was a pro celebrity race. Now I've got to start thinking now in Abu Dhabi. No, Dubai. The first time the Grand Prix was there, we were all in Holden Commodores, you know,
Yeah, of
the
course.
sort
Vauxhall,
of
yeah. Vauxhall Holden.
semi-race work version of their supercars back then. And I had Aussie in front of it. I qualified third, so I was right in the mood for a really good race with the other celebs. Like Martin Brundle was beside me. I saw that Brundle boy out. And coming out of the other, it opens with a right and left chicane. There's a short straight when you could overtake it. I was right behind the Aussie champion who was in the front row in his slipstream. And he did exactly that. Missed a gear. And I had cars alongside me. So running a potential second, I think I got to the fourth corner in about seventh place. Right in front of me. This one I always remember. I don't know why I remember that one.
I had one at Knockhill, actually. I did the same. I went up. That's why I said it, because I went up the back of Jeff Newman. Remember him? The
Oh,
leader,
yeah.
championship leader by a mile. And also
See, missing
BTCC.
gears. One of the
Yeah.
skills of the driver.
No,
That's
I
all
get
gone now. You see these single seater kids turning into the apron.
it. I get it.
Down a
Yeah.
gear,
Click.
so up a
So
gear, up a
smooth. Click,
gear.
click, click. None of this. And also I saw over the weekend on X that people are still saying poor old Nigel Mansell,
Yeah,
BTCC.
yeah,
But he hit you by the look of things.
exactly.
Talk
I
us
know.
through that again. We've gone through
Well,
it once,
I,
twice on this show. Go on, talk us
felt a
through it.
bit. I felt a bit guilty retweeting it because that sort of thing. But yeah, it's always about poor Nigel and his huge crash at Donington, the Toka shootout. He did a one-off race of the Mondeo, and I had a one-off race in the Vauxhall Cavalier at Curios with the lovely David Leslie. Sadly, we lost in that awful air crash. And I'd struggled with flipping Nissan all year, which didn't have a very good engine. So I'd struggled. I had a disappointing, frustrating BTCC season. And I was running third right behind David Leslie. And in the lead was, the Kiwi, Paul Radicic, who was the world champion that year, in a Mondeo.
94, was it? 94?
Yeah, sort of 96, someone said.
96, yeah.
So it was a great race. But Nigel is coming from midfield because it took a bit of a while to get used to the front wheel drive. And he literally knocked me off the road at Redgate to take my third place. And I was well ahead. I didn't bother to block because I thought I could stop at the race. I had Steve Soper was behind me for the laps before. And turned into halfway to the apex, bang! And I lost my mirror. And I was pushed on the grass. Steve Soper got past me as well. And then we plunged down the Craner curves to the old hairpin. And there, I've now got Soper between me and Menzel, who's in my third place. And he just got completely broadside. So in touring cars, normally that means you're going off to the right, the front wheel drive car. And Soper just went by on his left. I was just trying to follow Steve through. When all of a sudden, Nigel, with a massive amount of opposite lock on, he managed to get some bite. And he just turned sharp left across the front of me. So I braked to try to avoid him. But contact was made, which did help aim him straight into the bridge parapet. And everyone thought,
what did he say to you afterwards?
Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. We just told everybody that Tiff Needell, he's put me in hospital, he's ruined. Met people on aeroplanes saying I can't play golf all winter because that Tiff Needell put me in.
No, really?
Well, it's never Nigel's fault, is he? Bless him. It's never his fault.
I grew up watching him in Formula One, and so I'm a big fan. I met him at playing golf and stuff. Yeah, big fanboy.
He's wonderful. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
When he's out doing charity days, he's a lovely bloke. He's great. He's a lovely, charming man.
But he's so competitive.
So it's never his fault. That was
golf,
the worst thing.
Single handicap of golf.
I'm good at that.
I'm
good at that. Ping pong, Nigel. I'm good at that. So bless him. But and the point is, he never apologised to me because it was a £12,000 prize for winning the Toka shootout race, which was massive to me. And those are 12 grand. We're lucky to win 500 quid to drive a race. The rumour has that Nigel was at least 100 grand just to turn up. So I was trying to finally win a front wheel drive touring car race. And I probably wouldn't have got by Leslie or Radicic, but you never know. I was there lurking.
Yeah.
When Nige arrived in my mirrors, took me out of the race, still hasn't apologised. Anyway, so touring cars, wonderful. There was Porsches galore, Formula 4s, entertaining in the sunshine of Knockhill.
Good.
And do I
what else?
That was it for the racing.
There was NASCAR.
I've left it to last this time. I promoted BTC ahead of it, but NASCAR's getting it. It's building up. I mean, it's not the greatest race. I don't like short tracks. I find them very boring. They go round bashing into each other, and it's very technical. But it's a nose to tail pack going round. It was a 0.75 mile Richmond circuit. But to make this playoffs, which are starting in 2 races' time, even more exciting, we have another new winner, Austin Dillon, who's the 14th winner to claim 14 now of the 16 spots in the playoffs have now gone to winners. But it's quite a good story because Austin, it's funny how some drivers win on the same track every year and then don't win anywhere else. You know, they do about 30 races a year. But Austin Dillon won the same race at Richmond a year ago, but he only won it by first putting Joey Logano in the wall and then Denny Hamlin in the wall. This is on the run from the turn 3 to the finish line. So as is always in NASCAR, you don't lose your win, but you get massive thousands of pounds of dollars of fines. And also they didn't allow that win to count to get into the playoffs. So Austin Dillon didn't make the playoffs last year because he won by dirty deeds, dirtier than Dirty Dead's deeds. But this time he won it fair and clear, easily won it, in fact, and he goes through to the playoffs. So now there's just 2 spots for the highest people up in the points standings, one of which was points champion from last year. He was champion last year for Tyler Reddick and Alex Bowman, who's one of Larson's teammates. So they're 7th and 9th overall of the points, but they're not in the 16 drive. But they should take those last 2 places unless someone from out of the blue wins at Daytona, which would kick one of those 2 out. So those 2 will be battling around Daytona, Reddick and Bowman, to make sure they stay ahead of each other in the points, knowing that a non-winning winner, and Daytona is a lottery, they all go around 200 miles an hour, full throttle, nudging, pushing, waving at each other out the window. They probably don't wave out the windows. It's a thing to watch at times 30 on Sky on Sunday night, and then go through all the long bit in the middle where they're just nudging around, getting like chess, moving towards the front, but not running out of fuel. And then there'll be a huge crashes, and they all crash, go to the finish line. So that's the NASCAR, which is, as I said. So what have we got next then? Indy. Well, IndyCar, I'm not sure about recommending that. The Milwaukee Mile, famous track, but a narrow
This
mile.
is next week, is it?
Yeah, it's a single file oval. IMSA GTs, it's not the hypercars this weekend. They're at this Virginia Raceway, which is quite a spectacular track. Good old-fashioned dirt corner cutting circuit. So really the big headline really is apart from Indy cars at Milwaukee Mile, it's Moto GP again. So we're going to get, if you don't like bikes, a lot of bikes coming up the next weeks.
We'll do a bit more on Formula One next week. We'll have a sort of mid-season. Yes. We'll have a mid-season 5 minutes on.
Everyone's doing. All the press are doing that. Who scored the most points? Who's won more drives than McLaren? Boring stats like that. It's full of it. The press.
We're not doing stats. We're just doing chats. Stats are boring. That's why your motorbike stats just like.
No, I'm chatting about stats. But anyway, MotoGP, they're a new track for them. Hungary, this Balaton Park, which looks like a 2.5 mile. They were worried they wouldn't even get out of 5th gear because it's so short and sharp and turny. So at least a different circuit to entertain those that want to watch MotoGP. If you're back home, there's lots of interest. You can go to Brands Hatch. Great to watch the British GT Championship penultimate round blasting around the beautiful Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. But there's also support races, including GB3, who we've been following, mainly because we look at Abby Pulling, who's headed there after winning in great glory the F1 Academy ladies race. But she hasn't had a good year. She's 14th in the point standings. But more annoying for the British GB3 Championship, the top 3 are all Australians. It's bad enough flipping Piastri trying to beat Lando and take the crown that Lando deserves more because he's British. 3 Aussies are battling at the top of the points. But if you're further up north, the place to be is Cadwell Park Superbikes. Now, they struggle to overtake around there, to be fair, talking about overtaking and stuff, because it's just but it's awesome to watch them race.
I would not want to race a bike around there. I don't want to race a car. It's a very proper old school circuit, if you don't know. And
has that leap got a name? I don't know if the leap's got a name. Leaping over the leap in front of the canteen paddock.
Leapers Leap. That's the new name for it. I need to do a petition to get you a corner at Thruxton because I went around with you, just doing a sighting lap. And in that BMW, if you haven't done it, really, it's only like 160 quid, and it is just so
159,
such fun.
159.
159 pounds. It's such fun, and I've done it many, many, many times, filming it just for fun, and it will never get old. You just can't help but laugh your head off. He's going into a right-hander, sort of 100-mile-an-hour right-hander,
Sideways.
doing a bit of a Scandi, and it's crazy. So if you haven't done that, get down to Thruxton. And also, we should mention Car Week. I know this is motorsport, but all the very rich and famous people were at Monterey over last week. Did you see any of that?
Well, I wasn't invited.
Exactly, the
Did
rich
you
and
say
famous.
rich? Did you say rich?
Yeah, and famous.
I'm not sure how famous. Yeah, I'm a bit low. I'm a bit
Get-
low on both. I'm a bit lacking in both rich and famous.
Well, you're higher up on both of those than me, if that makes you feel any better. But if this is going to make you feel worse, but fair play to Ferrari. So they always auction off something special for the Ferrari, some sort of charity, Ferrari charity. They auctioned off the last SP3, which is a beautiful road car. Beautiful, beautiful road car. They auctioned the last one. It was pretty hideous looking, half yellow, half black. But at auction, they sold that car, which normally would sell for about 5 million US dollars, I guess, list price, maybe a bit less. $26 million they sold that for charity for some hunter there's a lot of money around, isn't there? That is nuts. That's absolutely bonkers.
We need some. We've got a whole series of love cars on the grid, or is it love cars on the road? No, love cars are motorsport special. Because in fact, talk about Twitter and people saying thanks to I had another tweet from a kid that loved my passenger ride. But I've also had someone asking when Love Cars is back with Series 3 or on the grid, because he's just binge watched our first, having discovered how good Love Cars on the road on Amazon Prime. He discovered us.
It's money. It's all down to money.
I've told him on the internet. I told him on Twitter. But he loved the show. He binge watched the whole 2 series and he wants another series.
Good to hear. So do we. On that note,
Cheers,
we'll
all.
see you next week.